Hello, everybody. I am Abdillah Javardi. I'm your host of Education for a Better World podcast. Welcome to our podcast today. I have a very special and a great guest for us today. Professor Dana Kinsey is with us. And you're going to love her and learn so much about her. Professor Kinsey, would you please welcome? And would you please tell us about you?
Thank you. I will. I am living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I work at a school in Wilmington, Delaware. I've been a classroom teacher for 20 years, and this year I've actually had the opportunity to start a writing lab at a new school. This is my school in Delaware. It's called St. Mark's High School, and students at all grade levels in all classes across curriculum can come to me when they have a writing problem or a writing assignment. And we start at the beginning and I work with them to brainstorm and work through all the steps of the writing process until they have a finished product. And I coordinate with their classroom teachers, making sure that their assignment is fulfilling what their teachers want. And usually we've had some pretty good results. I also run a contest called Poetry Out Loud, and students can choose a poem from a data bank of over 1,000. This is a national competition, and it starts at school level, and they memorize the poem and they recite it. They sort of take on the persona of the poet. So it involves some research, it involves performance, and it really gives them a lot of confidence. And so I have a big contest and I bring in outside judges. I brought the Poet Laureate of Delaware in this year. And it really elevates the year for the students. And although they're terrified and oftentimes they try to get out of it, at the end, they're very happy and fulfilled. And they feel as if they've accomplished something. So Poetry Out Loud is special to me. I've been coaching it for over 10 years. And this year, my student was the Delaware State Champion.
Wonderful. Congratulations to you and the school and the winner of the competition. Well, you talked about writing. And, this is wonderful what you're doing. This is a great concept because communication is one of the most important skill sets that individuals have to have. And writing obviously is one of the major form of communication. And could you tell us a little bit more about that? Maybe about what you do. What is the writing process that you actually put in place and work with the students on?
Sure. When students have research, for example, I teach them how to use the internet to find good, reliable sources. That's one place where I feel like sometimes education is lacking and that the teachers just expect them to be able to navigate the World Wide Web. And we both know there's a lot of sources out there that aren't exactly valid. So I teach them how to be discerning internet users and find those good academic sources that are going to elevate their research. Also, the whole purpose of doing research. Lots of times students don't understand. They kind of feel as if they're just spitting back words that other people have already put out there, when in fact, I want them to own it creatively and take all these different voices and add their own. They are the creator of it. I like to empower them. Lots of times they feel daunted and scared to approach these projects. And the other side of it is creative writing. There's not a lot of that because teachers have to teach curriculum, and in a literature course there's so much literature that needs to be covered, so that creative piece is kind of lost, and the students don't know if they're creative. They don't know how to find their creativity or find their true voice. So I work with them to sort of free that and sort of allow them to play with metaphor and simile and those poetic devices that really bring their writing alive and make it fun. I think the if they view writing as drudgery, then they're not going to have a very good product. So I like to really try to empower them by tapping into what they're excited about, what their passion is.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you talked about poetry, and you know, I have a love for poetry, and you know, you can learn so much and find individuals that speak to you about a certain way that you feel or certain issues, and after a while, maybe students gain that same knowledge to be able to express themselves and find ways to communicate that is much more effective than just a literally, you know, communication that are taught black and white in the school. So how do you get students to, first of all, to get interested in poetry and then transition in a sense to become a poet themselves?
I feel if you start with more modern work that feels approachable. Usually poetry courses are any American lit, British lit, world lit, they're all structured chronologically. So what you do is you start with some old text with some antiquated language and already they're intimidated. So I like to bring them poetry of the moment and start there and teach them that it's accessible. And they don't necessarily have to understand every single word to decode it. It doesn't have all these deep meaning. You know, sometimes it's just about appreciating beauty or bringing light to a subject, you know, in connection with another human being. It's just a way to connect, a way to express emotion. And so by showing them that it's not so scary, I think that they can then go back and look at those texts that are a little bit more difficult and realize this is still a person with all the same emotions that I have. They're just using different language to express it. And if they look at it that way, that there was a human behind the words who was feeling something they needed to communicate, I think it's beautiful to be able to crack the codes for them. And then it becomes exciting.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now I already know that you know that kind of gives me some idea to go afterward and start maybe working a little bit on that. But I appreciate it. I always have looked at poetry a lot more complex than the way you explained it. You know, so thank you. Now, you mentioned about in your workshop and what you have, they get to do different things, and part of it is writing and the whole process, poetry, and then you talked about performance. How do they get to perform? Yeah.
Sure. Well, with Poetry Out Loud as an example, they have to give voice to the text. So now it's not just quietly reading a book in their room, they are bringing these words to life for an audience. And as soon as they're memorized and that poem is in their head and in their heart, they then can communicate that on a stage. And so it does add the element of eloquence. They must speak properly. They must use good diction. They can use volume and all sorts of dynamics to bring the poem to life. So they learn a little bit about their instrument, their voice, their body, their posture, their expression. All of those things then come together to get the entire performance to the right level. So for a lot of students, to even stand on a stage is terrifying. Um, but to do this one poem center stage for their peers and other faculty members and gain the respect of their school community feels wonderful to them.
Well, thank you. You know, I mean, I think that's wonderful because if the individuals, I mean, this is a 360-degree perspective of communication. You learn how to write well, you learn how to express yourself in a way that can be humanized and you know, be able to communicate well with others. And then by you be able to verbalize it or that poetry aloud, you know, it kind of gives the whole view of communication to students and kind of well prepare them on the way to enjoy the next stage, because it doesn't matter what expertise you have if you cannot communicate with others what that particular area is, be it medicine, engineering, law, art, music, whatever it is, that is the key to be able to communicate it. So thank you for sharing that with us. You know, now if you think about beyond your classes, in general, a lot of faculty members throughout their assignments that they have, uh, there's quite a bit of challenges that they have. One of the challenges is how they can make their classes like yours more fun and effective. Any suggestions for our educator colleagues that are watching our programs, that what are some of the techniques that they can put in class to make their classes more fun and engaging?
I really like dynamic classes that involve every person in the room. I don't really necessarily believe in all lecture. I will lecture for very short periods of time, and then I like to involve everyone. I like teaching dramatic texts. I like teaching plays as literature and giving everyone a role and listening to how a play unfolds aloud. And I think opportunities to hear literature and to discuss it and read, but stop and explain things in context and ask students questions that will engage them, and also ask them to apply the literature to their life. If it feels so remote, if it feels centuries away, if it feels like it's in a country that they never visited, or if they feel like these characters have nothing in common with them, I like to try to have them find that common ground. What is it that you do share in humanity with this other person? So I think, as much as I like teaching all genres, I really love teaching drama, because for me, drama really encapsulates all of the genres, in that there's poetry in it, there's eloquence, there's text, there's character development, there's always a plot. You get a lot of history if it's a historical play, or get setting and costumes and all sorts of things. So I always find something that appeals to each student. Maybe a student doesn't necessarily like literature, but they like clothing, they like fashion. So we look at costuming, and I kind of assign them something that will be exciting for them within the project. I really think finding each student's gift.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, how important do you think it is for students and everybody, not just students, but the whole idea of the mentorship? How can it be used in helping individuals and ourselves to grow?
Sure. I would like to think that I've had amazing mentors in my professional career, starting with my first mentor teacher, who was a very, very dynamic man. And I watched how the kids related to him. I watched his face, and the kids always knew that he was having fun, that he wouldn't rather be anywhere else than be with them. And I think that feeling, that level of comfort, that creating of safe space makes for great mentorship among colleagues and among teachers and students. And I also always tell my students that there's really no difference between them and me, except that I've had some more education and I want to share it. I really try to approach them as if we're equals, and their mind is as fine as my mind, and it's just an exchange of ideas from different places, and their perspective helps me because I'm of a certain age, and they are young, and they are aware of a lot more things with pop culture and current music and trends, and we share and we do it together. I also believe that modeling is important. My students know that I write professionally and that I get rejections often. I tell them that. I show them how many things that I submit and how many things get accepted and rejected, and how it takes diligence and persistence and patience to wait for these things. So I think that when they see me doing the same actions that they're doing in order to learn, they'll understand the importance. I'm not just telling them to do things, I'm showing them that I do the same things.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Um, in regards, and I think, actually the mentorship is a wonderful tool to benchmark to see how we want to grow and how we can, take this journey and benefit from another person's perspective, kind of have a guideline for how we want to, reach our goal. In regards to the internship and the value of internship, and a lot of time people, they think internship should be done, when you finish all your studies, and some people, they think no, internship could be something that can go along with your studies at different age, at different stages of your education. What's your view of it, and how much of value do you think internship has?
I think it has great value. And I think it should be done throughout a person's education. Even now, when I'm not teaching, sometimes I go to colleagues' classrooms to see what they're doing because I think I can always learn more. An intern isn't just at the beginning of a career. I think an internship is lifelong, and you should always be open to new methods. And, what are they doing that's working that I could add, that I could improve what I'm doing? I also remember doing observations really early in my teaching education, not teaching, not student teaching, just going and sitting in classrooms and watching and making sure that that's really what I wanted, that I really felt that passion and would have exchanged places with that teacher in a heartbeat. And I always would have. And that convinced me that I was doing the right thing. I think you're more motivated to work harder in your studies if you know you're exactly in the right place and you can see what's ahead for you in the real world, not just in a book.
You are so right, because I have talked to a number of people. When you ask about the internship, in some cases, very successful people, they value internship because they kind of looked at something that they had thought they would love, and they had put a lot of their heart and time and energy into. And after the internship, they found out this is not what fulfills them.
Sure.
So they had the opportunity to make a change and find something that was right for them, and they are so thankful to that opportunity of the internship
Yeah.
that allowed them to get onto the right track. And if it's done throughout the study, it just helps us navigate and find what makes us happy, what makes us fulfilled. So no, I appreciate that very much. So my next question is about professional mindset.
Mhm.
And as you know, we have talked about this before. Professional mindset means different things to different individuals. So, my question is, what is your definition of professional mindset? And then follow up to that is how the professional mindset has worked in your life and your career.
Yeah, sure. Uh, I feel as if um, I always wanted to be at the top of my game. I wanted to have as much expertise as I could possibly have. And to me, that means continuing my education, always reading, always learning, always striving to be better and do better for my students. So, professionalism to me is making sure that I'm aware of the current methodology and all of the things that figure into me doing my best in a classroom. I also think that keeping up with my own writing and being sure that I am doing my best work professionally makes me stronger in my classroom as well. Because I like to think that the more success I have as a writer, the more motivated I am to pass that along to my students. So for me, it involves keeping up with my own writing and my own creativity as well, finding this balance so that I'm giving enough to my students, but I'm also not feeling as if I'm neglecting the work that I want to do and the things that I have to say to the world with my own writing and through theater.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, what I want to, explore with you is, opportunities that you see today in education environment, the education industry, that is so unique because of all these changes and these things that are happening. What are some of those opportunities? And then follow up to that, what are some of the challenges that we're facing as educators and society in as far as the education is concerned?
Sure. I think that lots of teachers feel overburdened in their environments right now. They have to do a lot of preparatory work. They're required to do a lot of work. Some teachers have to learn technology that they never knew before. They have to put lesson plans in various different locations online, and they have to be available almost 24/7 because now there's emails and they have to be answered in a timely fashion. So I feel like the balance between that expertise that I talked about, where you have to constantly be creative and learn and make these beautiful lesson plans, that in the balance of I also have to do all of this work and grade 160 students each day and be responsible for their emotional health and other things that they bring into the classroom. Students come with a lot these days, and we're asked to do a lot of different jobs and also maintain a safe space where they feel able to express themselves.
Thank you, thank you. And what are some of the maybe advice that you can give people that are watching this program? And our programs are watched, again by teachers and administrators, as well as some of the individuals, working on their studies, taking different programs and such. Uh, and the theme of the program and podcast is education for a better world. How could we make a better world through education for ourselves, for people that we serve? And any last word of advice for us? I would appreciate.
Sure. I see education as my vocation. It's not a job. It's not even necessarily a career. It's a vocation. It's something that I need to do. And I know not all teachers feel that way, but I also think that we have to look at our end product. A lot of people in different businesses, they see, a doctor sees a patient that's healed, an engineer sees a structure built and it stands tall and proud. Teachers, we see students succeeding and we see students striving for more, and we see students who want to change the world, who want to express themselves and who see better ways to do things. And our hearts and minds are being injected in those students. And so I think with that goal in mind, it really elevates the work that we do. I do think it's the most important profession because we're training everyone at the start of their lives when they're most vulnerable and they're most attentive and they're ready to hear and listen and haven't yet chosen their path. So we really help them navigate. And I think keeping that in mind in the midst of everything, all the busyness, all the responsibilities, all the administrative things that are happening to distract us, when we close that door and those students are ours, I think those are beautiful moments.
You're so right. You're so right. And I can tell you from my viewpoint, being a teacher is one of the most uh, wonderful profession. And at the same time, it is gratifying to see that you are making a difference in individuals and how they look at themselves and what is possible for them to reach. And I believe this is how we can make the world a better place. And the more we are able to impact individuals, the easier it is to make that change. So thank you for
Absolutely.
being a guest in our program. It's been delightful, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.